Thanks for checking in from wherever you are in the world. Welcome to Practical Wisdom for Leaders, the official podcast of the International Leadership Association. I'm your host, Scott J. Allen, and each week I invite executives and scholars to explore the real work of leadership. This podcast is part of a global community committed to helping leaders thrive. If you find these conversations valuable, connect with me on LinkedIn, subscribe to the podcast, and share this episode with others. To learn more about me, visit www.scottjallen.net. And now, here's today's episode. Okay, everybody, welcome to the podcast. Thanks so much for checking in wherever you are in the world. Of course, Practical Wisdom for Leaders, the official podcast of the International Leadership Association. Today, I have a returning guest, and I'm super excited about this conversation because I always love checking in with Gary Lloyd. And Gary and I have done a couple podcast episodes. This might be number 4, Gary. And yeah, I'm
trying to catch up with Jonathan Reams.
Yeah, we got a little, he had when he approached me, he was like, I've got about 12 episodes. And so, yeah, we kind of moved through those, but that was a lot of fun. We got a little time on that one. We got a little work to do, but there's plenty to talk about. And, of course, you have been on this kind of experimentation, exploration initiative in the last few years of really, again, building and experimenting, exploring with artificial intelligence. And then how does that intersect with leadership education? And so I think I'm just really excited to kind of hear what you're seeing. What are 2 or 3 observations you have? This topic has been on my mind. More and more, Gary, I'm kind of bumping into, and I've been exploring LinkedIn a little bit in the last year more intensely. You've got these folks whose their expertise is Claude. I keep bumping into managers that are basically using Claude to manage or trying to use Claude as a default to manage, or consultancies that are overusing Claude to try and nothing replaces expertise. Like, it's a tool, but it's not your expertise. So I think, I don't know. I mean, I'm seeing some abuses of some of these tools out there. Maybe we'll get there, maybe we won't. But I'm just excited to hear about what you're seeing as you're building. So 2 or 3 things. What's on your radar right now?
Well, a quick aside. I don't know if it's true, but something dropped into my inbox just now that said that LinkedIn are introducing an "This is AI Slop" button that you can vote on.
I like that. I like that. That's good.
So everybody needs to be cautious. How good it is or not, I don't know. We'll get into the work thing. Fortunately, you warned me of this question, Scott, because I'd love to be really ultra fluent and just speak off the top of my head. But actually, I've had time to think about this.
Yeah.
And well, I kind of had 12 hours to think about it. So my 3 observations, which I've written down so I don't forget them, is 3 observations of this. One the strongest theme that comes out from all of these podcasts is the knowing doing gap.
Yes.
I mean, it just comes up time and time again. I won't pretend I don't shout at the iPod, at the recording when some of these come up, because I just keep shouting AI. So the main thing I've learned since we last spoke about AI, the technology has moved on quite a lot. And I created something about 3 months ago, which we can get around to talking to if it's of interest to people, which is that it's now not difficult to create learning experiences in which practice, supported by a tutor or not, and scaffolding are a real possibility now. So in terms of knowing and doing, it's really not difficult to put together learning experiences where people practice doing in a safe environment. So that's observation number 1.
Okay.
Observation number 2 is kind of related, which is the technology of talking to a computer to get it to create an app for you is now easier than ever shouldn't say easier than ever. It's really easy. I, I created something for Doris. Doris is an artist, and she wanted to organize her work and stuff like that. And she'd experimented with every single app that was out there, but it wouldn't do exactly what she wanted. Because we all know, any of us that have been around technology at all, know that if you're going to buy some software, then what you have to do is to bend your processes to fit the software to get the best out of it. Otherwise, you'll spend a huge amount of money on customization.
Yeah.
That is no longer the case. So Doris, in frustration, came to me with a promise I'd made to her long before, and she said, "Could you build me an app?" 2 hours later, there's her app. Now, it's not that we didn't iterate around it after that, but she now has something that works in exactly the way that she wants it to.
Wow.
And this is true for leadership educators as well. There's no reason why leadership educators, there's no reason to do a double negative now. Leadership educators now have access to the technology. And believe me, it's easy. When I say it's easy, it's really easy. You know, Scott, I'm not a technologist. My background is change leadership. And I kind of stumbled into this territory just experimenting through curiosity. Absolutely bespoke. This is exactly what I need. You can get by talking to the computer now. So that's observation number 2. Creating learning experiences that close the gap between knowing and doing by putting doing in front of the people. And the third one is really something's been bugging me. You touched on it in the intro. Something's been bugging me for, I don't know, 3 to 6 months now. And it's taken me this time really to wrap my mind around what's the lesson here, and that's the rise of agents. Now, if we go to the social media channels, then agents are everywhere.
Yes.
And they're great, but they introduce a lot of risks, because in all the conversations people are having about agents, they're not talking about what we used to call hallucinations, or what we still call hallucinations, but are better described as mistakes, that they make mistakes.
Yeah.
And if an agent does a number of steps, then each step is an opportunity to compound a mistake. So in terms of the observations around that, is I've just started to see that the big AI labs at the corporate level, at the organizational level, are kind of realizing now that this is a big risk for organizations. So they're starting to build frameworks for risk management, essentially. So what I'm trying to drive towards here is saying that, from our point of view as leadership educators, if we're building tools for ourselves, we need to be aware of risk. And if we're delegating off to something to do work for us, we need to treat it like a human being. We need to say, what are the discretionary limits? What's the audit trail look like? How did you come to that conclusion? So we need to build these things in, and organizations are starting to realize that they build to build these things in. And I think that it's a challenge that the people we're educating, I say we're educating, you're educating, the listeners to this podcast,
it's a week
doing leadership, doing, I mean, you and I have talked before about, you said like you thought that a key leadership competency was technology literacy, or the kind of morphing into AI literacy. And I'd always kind of go, I'm not so sure about that, because it's very specific. But at this specific space in time, I was talking earlier in the week to a mutual friend of ours, Gary Strack, about the role of CEOs. And even people that are at CEO levels, top of their list of worries, top of their list of concerns at the moment should be risk management and managing in uncertainty. That may change over the next 12 months or 24 months as the systems change. But it was, I think, about 3 years ago, Sam Altman, who heads up OpenAI, said in a year's time nobody's going to be talking about hallucination.
Hmm.
18 months time, he said nobody's going to be talking about hallucination, and he was right, but he was right for the wrong reasons, because what has transpired is that it's a feature, not a bug.
Hmm.
And so, just like uncertainty in organizational life, I wrote about this in my book, which is, we need to work with the knowledge that uncertainty exists and how we work in uncertainty, and not trying to control it. It's a feature, and it's disappeared because the people. I saw that Tata Consultants. Sorry, I'm going off a bit tangent here, Scott. Which is Consultancy Services, which is a big IT provider out of India. Um, they're training like 8,000 people in to be AI engineers to help their clients.
Hmm.
And I kind of go, well, what the hell what are you doing? What are 8,000 people doing out there? It's absolutely astonishing. So there's a massive push towards using AI, and people are being measured on it. And it turns out to be very expensive. And what AI can deliver is extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary. But the risks need to be managed.
Yeah.
So those are my three things. I've got another way of Can I have another way of answering it?
Yeah, please,
The
please.
second way
Yeah,
of
let's
answering it.
let's.
So
You're going to add 3 more, aren't you? You're just going to do 6.
I've got 4.
Okay.
I've got 4. No, it's just a different one. It's just different way of spinning it.
No, I love it. I love it. Let's hear it.
Different way of spinning it. It's my other notes, which is what are the questions that we should be asking. So the questions that for me are for leaders, how is the context changing
Hmm.
for leaders? What does that mean for the skills that they need to manage that context? How do we help them develop those skills? And can our AI help us to help them develop those skills? So when I think about leadership development, that's kind of how I think about it. And when we kind of get to the last 2 of those 4, I guess that's where most of my time has gone, where over the last probably 3 months or so, which is with starting off with some hypotheses, and then trying to set out to prove them. And those hypotheses were, can you evaluate how good people's leadership skills are, their thinking skills around leadership, through a deep conversation with AI, and evaluate that? And I think I've ticked the box on that.
Wow.
And can you then use that to create learning experiences where this is where I go to Theo Dawson here. I mean, what Theo says, a skill is something you can practice, a leadership skill is something you practice, and a micro skill is something you can practice in the moment. Well, certainly AI allows you to practice in the moment. And the thing I have now is it does the assessment, and then it gives a menu of micro skills. It says, oh, what do you want to practice for the micro skills? And then it presents you with some scaffolding. You then go into a supported tutorial, and then it gives you feedback on it. And then you just keep cycling around. And every conversation learns from the previous conversation. And that wasn't difficult to build, but it's an illustration of the sort of learning experiences the AI now allows us to create. So that was a longish answer.
Hmm. Well, there's a lot in here, a lot of really good stuff in here. I mean, I think that, and you've been writing about some of this on LinkedIn in recent times. It might be, is AI the tool that's appropriate for the situation that we're in? Is it a appropriate intervention? And to your point, I think at least in that post, you wrote, hey, look, everyone's adopting and spending millions and millions of dollars, and they've got FOMO, but is there a real use case for how AI is going to help our customers or help the client that we're engaging with? And so what is that use case that's truly the need, right? And there's a lot of people with things that it can do, but is that actually the tool that's appropriate for the situation? So I think there's that piece that I kind of have on mind. There's another piece, this knowing doing gap. And I think it's such a fun conversation in leadership education because I just the other day I was with a group, and of course they all know that they should communicate effectively with one another. They should be aware of their nonverbals. But it was amazing to watch as soon as the conversation got a little bit heated, their nonverbals said everything, and they weren't aware any longer of kind of how they were showing up in the conversation. And
Mm-hmm.
so, that skill building element, that actual, can you actually, and you and I have talked about this way too many times. You can put me in a course on soccer and talk about it, but that doesn't mean I'm going to be able to play football and I'm going to be skilled at the sport of. And so that is a conversation that I'd kind of love to think about. And how can AI bridge some of that gap? I guess I wonder where you see this going from, just specifically in leadership education. What are the possibilities that you see right now? You've built this tool. Some folks are using it. They're practicing with it. Um, what are you seeing as people are using the tool?
I think people are surprised by how realistic it is
Hmm.
to start with. A couple of companies have avatars that would look much like we do now and have conversations for that. I haven't seen the complexity of avatars adding much to the conversation. People often like to just have the conversation. Um, I think people are surprised by the feedback that they get.
Hmm.
Sometimes they're upset by the feedback they get. Sometimes they're pleasantly surprised. But I find that this is a surprising finding, Scott, that um, people are more open to feedback from the AI
Hmm.
on the conversation they've had. Bear in mind, the thing that I've built is, or both the experiments that I built were voice based.
Yeah.
So people were talking as we're talking now, although they can't see a face. And people very the way that it turned out to be it seemed to be the best way to do this was to have the practice conversation or the evaluation conversation as a voice conversation. It's real.
Okay.
People sometimes report they feel under pressure, even though the AI will wait forever before it before you to respond. They still feel the anxiety, like I did earlier on when I couldn't remember my third point. Um, you go, oh crikey! Well, I look at my notes. What will I do here? So, um, but they like written feedback.
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
They like the feedback as text rather than somebody talking to them. For some reason, well, it's just the way we're wired as human beings. It feels less threatening. It feels less like a human being. And it feels, because what it's doing is it's switching from being a human being, which is having, and by the way, the assessment conversations, I personally find them very tough.
Hmm.
It assesses me against five, what do you call them? Not heuristics, five,
Principles or
yeah, yeah. There's
elements or
it'll come back to me
dimensions.
in a moment. No, the scoring thing. What's the
A
scoring thing?
rubric. A rubric. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Rubric. Thank God. So it scores against the rubric, five rubrics, 0 to 5 out of 10, and I set that up to be. It's got to be absolutely neutral. It offers no help or support. It doesn't go, oh, that's a good answer. And
Yes.
it goes, so why do you think? I mean, one of the things about that experiment, going back to the three observations, Scott, is that one of the things I really wanted to test is that could the AI do more than say, oh, that's the right answer?
Hmm.
Could it go, okay, why do you think that? What are your underlying assumptions here? And start to dig in. What we're trying to do here is to understand how the person thinks and evaluate their thinking process, not evaluate their answers. Does that make
It
sense?
does. It does. I mean, I know Jonathan is kind of exploring and experimenting with a similar approach, but in adult development, right? Can you kind of
Mm-hmm.
assess the mental complexity of someone's answers and how they're thinking about a given topic? I mean, it's so interesting what you both are exploring, just in a little bit of a different domain. But yeah, it makes perfect sense.
So that bit feels personal
Mm-hmm.
to people. The
Yeah.
voice-based bit feels personal. But then when they'll get the feedback and they'll go, okay, I'm not that keen on the feedback, but I'm just going to pick off this micro skill, and it gives a bit of scaffolding for the micro skill. And then they have a conversation with the supportive tutor, and then they get feedback on that at the end. And the feedback they read is kind of neutral because they know it's produced by a computer.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know this is weird, but they're more accepting of feedback that's presented in that way.
Well,
Strange but true.
yeah, I mean, it's super interesting. I did an episode, you would have listened to it, with David Day, and we were talking about your AI manager and what AI management would look like. And I just saw that Facebook came out with this little button, or Meta came out with this little button that basically, and I think probably your glasses can do it as well, but they just record everything. And I don't want Mark Zuckerberg recording everything at work, but it is an interesting kind of thought experiment where, just in the flow of my day, I could, at the end of the day, get data on how optimistic was I, how what did I say that could have been interpreted incorrectly, what did I say that maybe stalled conversation. There's this episode of Black Mirror, I think it was called The Entire History of You.
Yes, yes.
And you know, you can replay and go back to the meeting and people's eye contact. I'm not looking for that.
So you could replay a conversation you've had with Jessica and go, no, 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 I was right.
Yes.
This this is what I said. That sounds really good.
The AI said I'm right. I'm correct.
Look, let me replay it for you. And they go.
See, it's
Talk
that
to
non
the hand.
it's that nonverbal right there, that's right here, that set me up. No, I mean, it obviously we can go to some dystopian places, but I think there is some real learning that can occur as well, and I think it's super interesting. You know, it does feel different when the AI says, look, kind of, you spoke 70% of that meeting. A consideration is that you leave some space for other people to share their ideas. I mean, there's real good, solid learning right there.
Well, you experimented with something around this, didn't you?
A little bit, yeah. But I think but not necessarily in the context of leadership. That was more kind of just presentations and communication. But yes, I mean, there's a program called Udly, which people could look to. But so I think there's a lot of opportunity. But again, in your space, it's interesting, that learning, that they want the written feedback, and that the feedback coming from the AI, it's almost depersonalized. And it almost gives me agency to decide what I want to take in and what I don't want to take in. I don't know. That would be so fascinating.
I think it's not. I think it's not. I'm trying to think of a better word than shame. But it's that kind of meaning, which is when you get the written feedback, you don't. You're not embarrassed. Embarrassed
Hmm.
is a better word. You don't feel embarrassed because you've failed, or
Yeah.
because you've been an idiot. It's because so much of our schooling and so much of our education systems right across the most of the world is about uh, not failing. It's about, I won't say winning, but
Yeah.
it's about passing. We're always passing exams and stuff like that. And if you don't do so well, you've got 50%, somebody will go, ah, shame, but everybody likes you, or something like that. All through our schooling, it's so exam based that we're used to saying, here's a bar, get over the bar. If you don't get over the bar, there's something wrong that
Yeah.
you need to do. And that feedback is not done in a coachy way.
Hmm.
Unless you're Carol Dweck, they're not giving you that feedback in a coachy way. There's one other thing that you said, Scott, that I wanted to pick up on, if I may, which was this is really, I think this is really, really important for leadership educators, which is, and it's true in corporate life or in organizational life, but it's as true for leadership educators, which is, this is, when we had our last conversation about AI probably at the International Leadership Association summit thing, which was what, 18 months ago, I think now.
Sure, sure.
Yeah, I was singing this song, and I'm still singing this song. I've read and this is not anecdotal. I read the research that comes out from people often like Wharton, MIT, um, the, the good universities, the business schools. Uh, People are still using AI primarily to augment or automate processes, or augment or automate tasks within processes to help them produce, I nearly said slop, to help them produce output that somebody else has to consume, by the way.
Yeah.
This is, I'm going to quick aside here, which is that I saw somebody the other day saying they created an agent, and it reads and prioritizes their emails, and then it writes the responses, and they trust it so much now that it sends the emails off
Wow.
as well. Well, there's probably somebody at the other end who has a similar agent, and the two agents are sending emails emails together.
Meanwhile,
There was
both humans have no clue what they ordered for
it's
lunch.
speaking of Wharton, here's something for your jargon dictionary. Here's something to put on your jargon bingo card.
Yeah.
I've had to write it down so I don't forget it. So speaking of Wharton, two researchers at Wharton, they did some research. Stephen Shaw and Gideon Nave, and they came up with it. What they're seeing is what they call cognitive surrender.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's what I was saying at the very, very beginning. I mean, at least it sounds like what I was talking about, where I'm just outsourcing all of my thinking. And again, I might not even have the requisite expertise to understand what follow-up question to ask, how to go a little bit deeper, or is this good output? And I think, again, that it's becoming blatantly clear when someone doesn't have that knowledge or that expertise as a consultant, as a leadership quote unquote expert, as a coach, whatever it is, they're just surrendering any of their own thinking. And then I have in my
Oh,
sphere.
sorry, Scott. I'm going to interrupt you if you
Yeah,
don't mind.
yeah,
It One of the things that research showed was that I think a lot of it was done amongst lawyers.
yeah.
It's not just that they don't have the expertise; they don't have the time.
Hmm. So they're just giving it away to it, and then, oh, well, that's interesting as well. So go ahead and define cognitive surrender.
Oh, well, I'm glad you asked me that, because the researchers at Wharton have already done that for me, and they have four components to it. Automation bias.
Okay.
Now, what they mean by that is, if it's been giving you the right answer for a while, or an answer that you like for a while, your trust level goes up.
Okay.
This is the emailing each other thing. Cognitive offloading, which is not doing the thinking first,
Yep.
just offloading. And we know, ask an LLM and it will just generate pages of stuff, even when you ask it not to. And you go, oh, okay, it's kind of all right, it's good, it's sufficient.
Yes.
The other one is confirmation bias, which is that because AI, large language models we're talking about here, really, in the main, because large language models get to understand us these days. This is, I suppose, this is kind of tied to the sycophancy one. But even when you go deeper in the obvious sycophancy, it's likely to say that even if you've been talking to it a bit verbally for a while, batting backwards and forwards, in the end, it's more likely to confirm what you think.
Hmm.
Confirm that the way that you think about it is right.
Great
It's not.
idea, Scott.
Yeah, yeah, but it's much more subtle than that,
Yeah.
because they're persuasive. They know how to talk to us. They've learned what our buttons are. Now,
And they want us
that-
to stay on. I mean, I think people are not understanding this. Just like social media, it's in Claude, Anthropic's best interest, or OpenAI. They're trying to keep us on the platform.
so
Correct?
let's make Yeah. So let's make a quick correction here. You and I are both enthusiasts for AI.
Oh yes.
So people need to take our comments about some of the reservations in the context that that's as we want people to use them responsibly. I've got
Yeah, we have one
one
more. One more
I've
of
got
those four.
one quote, and then I'm going to come to the main point I wanted to make.
Well, we
You can
still have
cut.
the fourth. We still have the fourth
Oh,
element of.
the fourth one was false consensus.
Okay.
Um, it's kind of it's very much like confirmation bias, but it might tell you that this is the agreed view of this
Okay.
when it's not. It's telling you that it's the agreed view of it because it knows from the history that that's what your view is. I'll
Ah,
give you. Shall I give you an example?
sure.
I'll if we've got time. In preparation for this podcast, I was going to say, oh, if you go and ask it about change leadership, it's going to come up with Cotter and his 7 steps or whatever of change management. So I asked it, and it didn't come up with it. And so I said, "Well, I'm a bit surprised that you've you've passed the test that you didn't come up with it because it's the most common thing that is out there." And it said, "Yeah," but essentially it said, "Yeah, it's because I've got to know you and I've read your book."
Oh.
Um, so the answer is in that way. So one big point I wanted to come back to with leadership educators and the fact that this technology, despite the reservations, if we know how to use it, is absolutely phenomenal. What I see people doing still is augmenting and automating work they do rather than thinking about what's the need
Hmm.
and how can we use this incredible technology to fulfill that need in a different way. And if the need is to help people be better at a particular leadership skill, and I tend to think about this is a conversation I had with the other Gary. I tend to think about, and this is a bias on my part. I tend to think in as leadership as a parcel, a group of skills. That's how I view it. Skills that can be practiced. So the question for educators, I think, leadership educators, are go back to what I said earlier on, which is what skills are people going to need now? And how do we prepare them? How can AI help us? That's the big question, and that's the thing that I've been working on. And I think actually the technology to do that now is very mature. And the technology is still moving very quickly around agents and stuff like that. But the stuff about using large language models to do role plays and structure. I mean, what has happened now with the so-called vibe coding thing, which is a thing like I did for Doris, where I just created an app for her. You know, any leadership educator now could go off to a weapon of their choice. Mine has become Codex because I had some mishaps with the Google ones.
Hmm.
Like I was in Tuscany and got an email saying we've just suspended your project because you've blown your budget twice.
Hmm.
So I think that what I would say to leadership educators is that there is now something. If you've got Chat GPT, if you're using Claude, you're probably more than familiar with Chat GPT. But if you go to Chat GPT or Claude Work, and just ask it using plain English to create a role play for you, or to create an app that does role play for you on a skill that you want your students or the people that you're coaching and mentoring to practice. Just go try to build something and find out how easy it is, because this kind of goes back to the very first conversation we had on this topic, Scott, which is there's you can read about it till the cows come home. That this is like your analogy with the dentists and practicing it. If people want to know what the possibilities are for them reinventing the way that they deliver leadership training or leadership education to the people that they support, then go and get your hands dirty a bit. It's unbelievably easy.
Yeah. And I think that's I oftentimes end what's the practical wisdom in this conversation, I think, unless you have something better than that, please say it. But I think that's at least one of the pieces of practical wisdom here is, are you engaging with the technology? Are you using it? Are you setting up assignments where your students are developing that role play, where they're learning and you're kind of learning through their learning? I think there's a lot of opportunity here. But for me, and you said it beautifully, we are both enthusiasts. I think you can consume the dystopian, you can consume the utopian. I tend to consume both. We've both read The Coming Wave, and there's some very significant downsides of this technology. And humans, since the stick or since fire, have weaponized every tool we've ever invented.
I have a great quote for you.
Yeah.
From somebody called Nenad Tomashev. He's a leading researcher at Google DeepMind.
Yeah.
And he said, as soon as you switch off, you're rolling the dice.
Yeah.
He was talking about the use of AI.
Yeah.
And he's somebody that's developing this stuff.
Well, I just watched with Stephen Bartlett. I'll send you, and I'll put it in the show notes for listeners. But Stephen Bartlett had the former. He was a futurist at OpenAI, and he left 2 years ago because he didn't believe in what they were doing. And his predictions of where all of this goes, again, they tend to be a little bit more on the dystopian side. But I think we need to have eyes wide open and be intentional. And I think that's as a leadership educator and how we use this tool, but also just on the very grand 50,000 foot view of this topic. It's there's some definite shadows that we have to be aware of.
The learning system I was talking about is called the leadership skill. The leadership skill builder. I'm getting mixed up with my other one, the leadership skill builder. And my offer is this, which is if there's somebody out there that has got a group of students at whatever level, undergraduates to postgraduates, if they'd like to work with me on beta testing that, then I'm really happy to support them in that, because we would both learn a lot from doing it. So, if you've got some cohorts of students and you think it might be useful, and I think the benefit of people doing this would be that without having to do what I said, which is go off and get over the hurdle of playing with something like Codex, they'd see live what the possibilities are. And it might be that what I've built is absolutely not for them.
Yeah.
But they might go, oh, you know what? So just ping me up and, I'm happy to come in, talk to the students, all free of charge. It's just an experiment.
Well, you are doing a great service for the community, sir. And I always love our conversations. I appreciate you. And we will, of course, do it again, because this is an ongoing conversation of Gary Lloyd's adventures. It's the series. We're in it for the long haul. So thank you so much, Gary, for the time today. I really, really appreciate it. Thanks for the good work that you do. And you know what? Have a wonderful weekend, sir.
A great pleasure, Scott. Thank you very much.
Be well.
Love to all the family.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to Practical Wisdom for Leaders, the official podcast of the International Leadership Association. Be sure to leave a rating, share this episode with someone in your network, and visit the show notes for links, references, and additional resources. You can also subscribe to the Practical Wisdom for Leaders newsletter for more insights and resources. Link is in the show notes. I lead retreats for senior leadership teams, conduct engaging workshops, and deliver inspiring keynotes for organizations across industries. To learn more, visit www.scottjallen.net. Until next time, keep changing lives.